So what is a sling? A sling is just a device that allows you to throw further and faster than you could by hand. And that's because of two simple things. One is it gives you a longer acceleration path to accelerate your projectile, and the other is it acts like an energy storage device. Just to demonstrate that, if I get this thing swinging, if I just put a little bit of acceleration into it, you can see it stores that energy. And so that's what allows it to throw further and faster than you can by hand. So slings all have 5 features in common. They have some sort of retention, some way to keep it on your body and keep it from flying away from you after you throw. They have a retention cord, a pouch where you put the projectile, a release cord, and some sort of release mechanism. In this case, it's a tab. It can also be a knot or even a smooth cord. How do you use a sling? First, take your hand. You want to put this on your middle finger, index finger, doesn't matter, but make sure that the part of the pouch that holds it, the projectile is facing up, and then you grip the sling. So once you have your sling on your hand, you take a projectile, you place it in the pouch, and then just like a bucket in water, when you swing it around, the centrifugal force holds it in place. If I want to throw this, what I do is I just let go of the release cord, and that releases the ball. So if I want to release it that way, I let go. So what you want to do, if you're just starting out, is try this underhand. So you want to swing the ball in front of you, like this. Not like this. Go like this, in front, and every time you feel the weight, I want to let go. And that's how you can get started with the basic underhand slinging. So once you've mastered that, you want to try getting a little more power into your throw. The best thing is to take the sling and just dry fire it. But if that's not quite working, you can't find the timing, what you can do is you can make a foxtail. Basically, you can tie a cord to a tennis ball or some other heavy thing at the end and try to get the timing with this. So making a foxtail is easy. All you need is something round, like a ball or even an orange, apple, or an onion, and then just a piece of cordage. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a little net for this ball. And so you just leave a little bit extra, leave a free end, and then we're going to wrap it. 1, and then you're going to turn it a little bit. 2, turn it a little bit. And 3, and then we're going to tie these loose ends together.
So like that, you got to make sure to keep the cord that you wrapped around tight. So got it nice and tight, and we're going to double knot this.
Got to keep it tight. Okay. Got it double knotted, and then you're just going to spread these out, make sure that they are even on the tennis ball and there's no slack, but then you got yourself a nice foxtail. And you can tie in a release knot at the end to try to mimic a sling. So to use a foxtail, simple, just take the release knot you made, grip it, and then you're going to want to swing it in front of your body. So like this. So I'm going to use my left hand so I look a little bit more like a beginner. You swing it forward, and then you're going to want to feel the weight of it. Every time it swings down, you can kind of feel extra weight. And when you feel that weight, you let go. And that's how you use a foxtail, and it's very similar with a sling, except instead of the foxtail, you let go of the release cord.
Once you've gotten comfortable with the underhand throw, you can try the sidearm throw. Take the foxtail and spin it overhead, and try a few practice throws without actually releasing the foxtail. Remember that all of the power comes from the final acceleration of the foxtail, not the spin. Once you've gotten comfortable with that, you can try it with the sling. Remember that the feeling will be very similar to the foxtail. The timing and the pull against your hand will feel the same. Remember that if it doesn't feel like a throw, you should slow down. You may notice that when you throw hard with the foxtail, it has a tendency to go to the right or to the left. This is normal. You just need to slow down a bit. If you slow down, the foxtail should go a lot closer to where you're aiming. You may notice that the foxtail has a tendency to release to the right of where the sling does. This is also normal. The sling takes a while to get out of the way of the ball, and so it has a tendency to pull the shot to the left. This, of course, is for a right-handed slinger. When you're slinging, it should feel natural, just like a throw. If it doesn't feel natural, then you need to slow things down. A common mistake I see most beginners make is they accelerate the sling too fast. They don't keep tension in the sling while throwing. The only way a sling can accelerate a ball is through tension, so you have to keep it taut through the entire throw. The other common mistake is to spin the sling as fast as you can, but you can't time the release when you spin it that quickly. Remember, all of the power comes from the final stroke that accelerates the projectile. One of the most important parts of slinging is how to aim the sling. Now, just like throwing, aiming your sling is adjusting the parts of the throw. One of those parts is the hit point or release point of the throw. I like to imagine a point in space that I whip the end of the sling through. Now this is the point where the sling rips out of my hand as I loosen my grip. Personally, I like to keep this release point constant, so I hit the same point consistently, and then I can adjust other parts of the throw to adjust my aim. The way I like to adjust my aim is by adjusting the point at which I start my power stroke. Because the sling is moving slower at the beginning of the power stroke rather than the end of the power stroke, a small change here will result in a small change at the impact point of the projectile, whereas a change in the release point will result in a larger change in the impact point. Here you can see I was hitting to the left, so I adjusted my power stroke to begin earlier so I would bring my shot to the right. Close, but no cigar. One of the things I love about slinging is how far and how hard you can throw a projectile. So I'd like to talk about how you can improve your mechanics to throw harder. The most common problem with the slinger not being able to reach their full velocity potential is moving the hip and the shoulder together. Instead of moving the hip and shoulder at the same time, what you want to do is move the hip forward while keeping the shoulders back. You have to actively engage your core to twist your shoulders back while you're twisting your hips forward. Now this only lasts for a split second, and don't try this without doing it slowly first, because you can hurt yourself. I say that from experience. Here's an example throw. You can see that as I swing the sling above my head to begin the power stroke, right as the sling points forward, my foot contacts the ground. If we go back in time a bit, you can see that my hips are pointing away from the target to begin with. As I step forward, they begin to turn before my foot hits the ground. Then my hips and shoulders turn together, with my shoulders catching up to my hips until the final release point. The next thing I want to mention is hand placement at the beginning of the power stroke. If you can get your hand above and behind your head during the power stroke as opposed to next to your head and out to the side, it gets you a much longer power stroke during the rotation of your body. Watch the position of my hand as I rotate my body. When I have it behind my head, I get a much longer, much wider arc, as opposed to when I hold it next to the side of my head and rotate my body, it basically stays put. Using this hand placement should increase the length of your power stroke and allow you to accelerate the projectile for a much longer period, getting you higher velocities. The last thing I'd like to touch on is the orientation of your wrist during the throw. Pronating or supinating your wrist can have a big effect on the spin of the projectile and therefore its flight. During the power stroke, the projectile actually undergoes a 180-degree flip, as you can see by this colored ball. If you pronate your wrist early, you can reduce that rotation from 180 degrees closer to 90 degrees. But you have to pronate your wrist through the entire throw for this to work. One final note on wrist orientation and how it can affect the spin of the projectile. If you snap your wrist at the end of the throw, you can align the sling better for a neutral spin. Here you can see my first two throws curve hard to the left. Then I start snapping my wrist and they go much, much straighter. Well, I hope this was helpful information for your slinging journey. If you have any suggestions or would like to see anything else, please let me know.